Corinne's daughter stood up in the middle of the courtroom, a loud, sharp laugh bursting out of her, the kind of laugh meant to mock, not entertain. She laughed so hard her shoulders shook, and then she pointed straight at her own mother. "You're a monkey," she said, still smirking, still amused at her own insult. The courtroom froze. Every head turned. Even the judge's bench felt silent. Judge Judy slowly raised her eyes, fixing the girl with a stare that could stop a heartbeat. And what Judge Judy decided in that moment, you will be shocked when you hear it. But before we jump in, tell me, where are you watching from? And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. The echo of the girl's laugh still trembled in the air, sharp enough to scratch the silence it left behind. Even after her insult landed, careless, pointed, cruel, the room stayed frozen, as if sound itself refused to move forward. The camera would have caught everything. Corinne stiffening in her seat, her daughter leaning back with the smug confidence of someone who believed consequences were optional, and Judge Judy lifting her eyes, slowly, deliberately, like the calm before a storm deciding where to strike. The insult hung between mother and daughter like smoke from a match, no one meant to drop. Corinne tried to laugh it off, a brittle, awkward sound that died halfway out of her throat. "She is joking," she muttered, brushing at the air like pushing embarrassment away could erase it. But her eyes betrayed her, wide, wet, desperate. The teenager snorted. "Relax, Mom, everybody already knows." Her voice held no fear, only entertainment. Across the aisle, the plaintiff shifted uncomfortably. A subtle movement, but enough to pull attention. She held her hands tight around a stack of papers, tight like someone who had learned to brace for emotional impact before physical sound. Her eyes flicked between mother and daughter with the kind of sadness reserved for people who have seen this pattern before but had no authority to stop it. Judge Judy finally spoke, her voice not raised but sharpened. "Stand up." The daughter rolled her eyes but stood, crossing her arms with exaggerated boredom. The fluorescent lights carved sharp angles across her smirk. Judge Judy studied her, not the attitude but the origin of it. Her gaze traveled to Corinne, whose shoulders now sagged under the weight of an insult she clearly recognized too well. There was history in that moment. You could feel it, even without words. "Tell me," Judy said softly, "why did you call your mother that?" The daughter shrugged, "Because she acts like one." Gasps fluttered across the courtroom, tiny wings of disbelief. Even the bailiff's jaw tightened, a muscle flickering in quiet disapproval. Corinne turned, whispering harshly, "Stop, stop right now." But the girl did not even look at her. She kept her stare fixed on Judge Judy, almost daring her to respond. The girl thought she was performing. She had no idea the curtain was about to collapse on her. Judy shifted her posture forward, minimal movement but enormous impact. The air changed. The room leaned in. And then, with a calmness that made the tension feel louder, she looked straight at Corinne, ignoring the daughter entirely. "Is that how she speaks to you at home?" The question sliced through the room like a quiet blade. Corinne inhaled sharply, her lips parting, not to answer, but because for the first time she realized the truth behind Judy's question was about to become impossible to hide. Corinne hesitated, just long enough for the entire courtroom to feel it. It was the kind of pause that reveals truth before any words dare to touch it. Judge Judy's question still lingered in the air, waiting to expose whatever she tried to hide. Corinne swallowed hard, her voice trying and failing to find steadiness. She does not usually talk like that," she said, but her eyes flickered downward, betraying a panic she could not disguise. The daughter let out a soft, mocking laugh, quieter this time but sharper. She rolled her eyes with theatrical exaggeration, shifting her weight like she was backstage at a performance, not standing in a courtroom. Judge Judy shifted her gaze to the plaintiff, grounding the room again. "Tell me about the arrangement," she said. "Start from the beginning." The plaintiff nodded, her fingers tightening around the papers she held. I watched her daughter often, she began, her voice soft but steady. After school, weekends, sometimes late at night. Karen said she needed help. I did not mind doing it at first. Karen's head snapped toward her. You offered, she insisted. Do not act like you were doing me a favor. But the plaintiff did not respond to the outburst. She kept her eyes forward, breath measured. I tried to support them, she continued. But it became difficult. There were behavior issues. The daughter scoffed loudly, flicking her hair back. Here we go, she muttered. Judge Judy raised a hand, not to silence, but to slice through the noise. When you say behavior issues, she said, be specific. The plaintiff hesitated, as though picking words with emotional tweezers. She was disrespectful, very. She would shout, argue, and sometimes push things off tables if she did not get her way. The daughter smirked, proud. If things fall, they fall, she muttered under her breath. Karen's face flushed. She is a teenager, she said desperately. You know how teenagers are, they get emotional. Judge Judy turned back to her with the precision of a scalpel. Emotional is not the same as destructive, she said. Do not confuse the two. The daughter shifted again, arms crossed, boredom slipping into irritation. And you are telling me, Judy continued, eyes narrowing slightly, that this behavior is unusual, that what we saw today was not normal. Karen nodded too quickly. Of course, she is just having a moment. The girl whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear, she always has moments. A ripple of uneasy amusement moved through the audience, before dying abruptly under Judge Judy's glare. The judge leaned back, studying the mother with growing suspicion. Something is not adding up. Karen opened her mouth to defend herself. But before she could speak, her daughter tilted her head, smirked, and muttered, because she's pathetic, loud enough for every microphone to catch, and Judge Judy's attention snapped to her like a strike of lightning. The word pathetic was still hanging in the air when the room seemed to shrink around it. Karen's lips parted in shock, but her daughter stood taller, almost proud of the chaos she had just set loose. Judge Judy's gaze landed on the teenager, with the weight of a verdict long before it was spoken. Stand up, Judy ordered. The girl was already standing, but she straightened further, crossing her arms with a slow, taunting smirk. The fluorescent lights carved a cold glow across her face, highlighting the defiance she wore like armor. Name, Judy said. The girl sighed dramatically. It's your full legal name, Judy cut in, voice steady as stone. A few quiet chuckles rippled through the audience, but they vanished instantly when Judy's eyes flicked toward them. Silence reclaimed the space. The teenager finally spoke her full name, dripping sarcasm on every syllable. Karen winced at the tone, as if she could feel each word tearing another seam in her fragile authority. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly. Tell me why you called your mother pathetic. The girl shrugged, because she is. She said it casually, like she was describing the weather. Karen gasped, a soft, wounded sound. Sweetheart, do not. But the teenager rolled her eyes, so hard it almost looked painful. The plaintiff sat very still, hands clasped together in her lap. Her expression carried something weighty, sadness mixed with recognition, as though she had witnessed these emotional weapons being sharpened for months. Judge Judy shifted her attention to her. You mentioned behavior issues. Was this the kind of thing you saw? The plaintiff nodded carefully. Yes, a lot. She would yell or insult her mother if she did not get what she wanted. Sometimes if I tried to help, she'd shout at me too. Karen whipped around. You provoked her, she insisted, eyes wide. You always acted like you knew better than me. The plaintiff's voice remained calm. I acted for her safety and yours. The daughter snorted, mimicking her mother's earlier flustered tone. You always act dramatic, both of you. Judge Judy's eyebrow lifted, a small but seismic movement. You do not speak while someone else has the floor. The girl laughed softly, then maybe stop giving them the floor. A collective gasp swept the room. This time Judy did not raise her voice. She did not need to. She simply said, "Step forward." The daughter hesitated, not out of fear but confusion, yet she obeyed. The distance between her and the bench grew smaller, and so did her bravado. "Look at your mother," Judy instructed. The girl glanced sideways with annoyance. "Not like that," Judy said. "Look." When she finally turned fully toward Corinne, the mother's face was not angry. It was exhausted, defeated, and pleading for something the girl did not yet understand. For a moment, the teenager's smirk faltered. Just a moment. Judge Judy opened a folder on her desk with deliberate calm. "And now," she said, lifting a document into view, "explain this incident report." The incident report trembled slightly in Judge Judy's hand, not from her, but from the weight it carried. Corinne's eyes locked onto the paper with a fear she tried desperately to hide. And the daughter's smirk, suddenly it did not look quite as confident. Judge Judy placed the file on the bench, the soft thump of the folder landing echoing louder than any voice in the room. "Your daughter was involved in a disciplinary incident at school," she said. "Explain this." Corinne blinked rapidly, mouth opening and closing like she was trying to catch a truth she had not rehearsed. That is old," she stammered. "It was nothing, a misunderstanding." Judge Judy slid the paper slightly forward, revealing the signature line at the bottom. "Your signature is right here," she said. "You acknowledge the incident and sign the corrective action form." The daughter's eyebrows lifted, surprise flickering across her face. "You said the school made that up," she whispered. The room tightened around Corinne, as if air itself had decided to step back and let consequences speak. Corinne shook her head quickly. "They exaggerated," she insisted, voice rising. "They have always targeted her. They never liked her confidence." Judge Judy's voice remained steady. "This report states she shoved a teacher's desk, screamed profanities, and threw a stapler across the room." The daughter smirked again, this time fading halfway through. "It barely hit him," she muttered. Judy turned her gaze on the girl. "You threw it." The teenager shrugged. "Yeah, but he ducked." The plaintiff shifted uncomfortably, clasping her hands together. There was something in her expression, not surprise, but confirmation, as if she had seen this behavior before and had been waiting for the truth to find its own light. "Ms. Corinne," Judy said, "you testified earlier that your daughter's behavior today was unusual." Corinne stiffened. "It is. She is acting out because of the cameras, because of the stress." Judy tapped the incident report, each tap quiet but heavy. "This was long before any cameras." Corinne's face flushed red, then pale, then something colorless altogether, like a wall that suddenly had no paint to hide behind. "I signed it because they pressured me," she blurted. "I did not agree with it." Judy arched a brow. "Are you claiming the school forged the details?" Corinne hesitated. And the hesitation said everything. Her daughter stared at her, confusion mixing with irritation. "Mom, you told me you fought the report. You said the whole thing was a lie." Corinne swallowed hard, eyes darting between her daughter, the plaintiff, and the bench. "I was trying to protect you," she whispered. Judy leaned forward, voice low, controlled, devastating. "Protecting her is not the same as lying for her." The courtroom fell silent, heavy, charged, waiting. Judy lifted the form, holding it up for Corinne to see. "This signature is yours," she said softly, "unless you are claiming it is forged." Corinne's hand hovered above the witness stand for a moment too long, trembling, exposed, betraying every truth she wished she had kept hidden. The signature on the report glared up at her like a truth she had once buried, but could no longer deny. Judge Judy waited, still as a blade poised over judgment. Corinne forced out a breath. I might have signed it," she whispered, But I did not read it thoroughly. They rushed me. The excuse landed flat. The daughter frowned, confusion cracking the edges of her earlier confidence. "You told me you fought it," she said quietly. "You said none of that happened." Karen turned toward her, desperation tightening her features. "I was trying to protect you," she insisted. "I did not want you labeled as a problem." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Judge Judy tapped the report once, a crisp, final sound. "Protecting her," Judy said, "would have required addressing the behavior, not pretending it never happened." The daughter shifted, arms crossing, not with confidence now but with defense. The room saw it. The camera would have lingered on it. A child realizing the ground beneath her had always been a lie. The plaintiff, quietly watching everything unfold, hesitated before speaking. "Your daughter acted this way at my home too," she said gently. "But you always said it was everyone else's fault." Karen snapped her head toward her. "Do not make this about me. I did everything I could." Judy's voice sliced through her outburst. "You lied," she said simply. Karen flinched. "You lied to the school, you lied to the plaintiff, and you lied to your daughter." Judy's gaze sharpened, locking onto Karen. "You taught her that consequences are optional. You taught her that accountability is for other people." The daughter's expression hardened, anger slipping in to fill the confusion. "So you lied to me," she demanded, "all this time?" Karen reached for her daughter's arm. "Sweetheart, listen." But the daughter pulled away. Not dramatically, just enough to create a space that felt larger than the entire courtroom. Judge Judy turned fully toward the teenager. "Do you understand what your mother just admitted?" The girl blinked, expression wavering. She looked at her mother, then at the judge. "She lied so I would keep doing whatever I wanted," she said, the realization hitting her like a silent blow. "She made me think everyone else was wrong." Karen shook her head violently. "No, no, that is not what I meant." But the truth was already out. This Ibble living impossible to pull back into the shadows where she had kept it for years. Judy leaned forward, her voice soft but unyielding. "Your daughter deserves honesty. That is the only thing you have not given her." Karen's breath hitched. The silence that followed was thick, heavy with judgment, regret, and a mother's fear unraveling in front of her own child. Judy turned to the girl, eyes steady. "Tell me," she said, "do you know what your mother just lied about?" The question hung between them like a live wire. "Do you know what your mother lied about?" The teenager's smirk faltered, then vanished completely. And for the first time, the room watched her think instead of perform. Judge Judy kept her gaze steady, her tone calm. "Answer honestly," she said. "No one here can help you unless you do." The girl swallowed, eyes darting toward her mother, looking not for permission now, but for something she had never received: truth. Karen's face tightened, as if willing her daughter to stay silent through sheer force of fear. But silence cracked. "She knew," the girl said suddenly, her voice brittle. "She knew everything that happened at school." Karen's breath caught so sharply, it sounded like a gasp pulled backward. The girl continued, words spilling faster now. "She told me the teachers hated me, that they made stuff up, that I should ignore them. She said if people had a problem with me, that was their issue." Judge Judy leaned in, her expression unreadable but her attention absolute. "And you believed her?" The girl nodded slowly. "Of course I did, she's my mom." Karen reached out, whispering, "Sweetheart, stop." But the girl stepped just out of reach, the movement small but shattering. "And she told me," the daughter said, voice trembling, "that people were jealous if they complained about me, that they wanted to bring me down." The plaintiff closed her eyes, pain flickering across her face like a memory resurfacing. Judy watched every shift of the room, the mother shrinking, the daughter awakening, the plaintiff remembering. The teenager looked down, voice dropping even lower. But she lied. She told me she talked to the school. She said she defended me. A shaky exhale. She did not defend me, she just hid it. Karen shook her head, tears forming. I was trying to protect you. No, the girl snapped, the word sharp with betrayal. You were trying to protect yourself. The courtroom recoiled, not from volume, but from truth exposed in its purest form. Judge Judy's face softened, not with sympathy but with clarity. This is why honesty matters, she said, because lies do not shield children, they shape them. The girl's shoulders sagged, the weight of realization settling into her bones. I thought being rude meant being strong, she whispered. I thought laughing at people was normal. Karen covered her mouth with her hand, her entire posture collapsing inward. Judy let silence fill the space, thick, heavy, intentional. Then she spoke again. What you described is not strength, she said gently. It is learned behavior. The daughter blinked hard. A tear slipped before she could hide it. Karen reached toward her again, tentative, shaking, but this time the girl stepped back fully. A mother's lie. A daughter's truth. A family cracking open. Judge Judy straightened, her voice returning to steel. Then let me tell you both what happens next. She turned the page in the file, her eyes sharpening as if she had just found the exact piece of truth the courtroom was not ready to hear. The sound of the page turning was soft, gentle even, but its meaning wasn't. It was the sound of a mother's defenses thinning, a daughter's certainty unraveling, and a courtroom bracing for the truth that would follow. And for the first time since the case began, Karen's face shifted from anger to fear. Judge Judy kept her focus locked on the file, but her voice reached into the room like a steady hand. Ms. Karen, she said quietly, your daughter has told us more honesty in 5 minutes than you have in this entire hearing. Karen's breath hitched, her shoulders curling inward. I am trying, she whispered. You have no idea how hard it is to raise a child alone. Her voice cracked, not from performance, but from something raw finally surfacing. The daughter looked startled by the sound. She had seen her mother yell, argue, blame, deflect. But cry. This was new. Karen wiped her eyes quickly, ashamed of the tears. I am exhausted, she confessed, her voice trembling. I feel like I am failing all the time. I lie because telling the truth feels worse. The room stilled. Even the plaintiff, who had every reason to feel resentment, softened her gaze. Judge Judy did not interrupt. She let the emotion spill in its own unsteady rhythm. Karen pressed a hand against her forehead. I did not want her to think she was the problem, she said in a low, shaking voice. So I blamed other people. I blamed teachers and Abers, her friends. Her eyes lifted toward the plaintiff, guilt washing over her. And I blamed you. The plaintiff nodded slowly. I never wanted you to blame me, she said gently. I just wanted you to see what she needed. The daughter swallowed hard. Her own voice, usually sharp and careless, sounded small. You never told me any of that, she whispered. Why did you not just say you were struggling? Karen turned toward her daughter with trembling hands. Because I thought if I looked weak, you would stop respecting me. The girl blinked, stunned. Mom, I never respected you because you never respected yourself. The words hit Karen like a physical impact. Her knees wavered. Her breath broke. And for a second, she looked like someone who had just seen her own reflection for the first time. Judge Judy stepped into the moment with a measured calm. Respect is not built by pretending, she said. It is built by showing truth, especially the parts that hurt. Karen covered her mouth, a sob escaping despite her attempts to silence it. The daughter looked away, jaw tight, her own eyes shining, not in anger this time but pain. The emotional tide had shifted. The case was no longer about money. It was about a relationship hanging by a thread, woven from years of unsaid grief. Judge Judy closed the file gently, letting the quiet settle. She tapped the bench once and said, "And now, we address where this story really begins." The courtroom felt different now, quieter, heavier, as if the walls themselves sensed the moment approaching. Corinne's sobs had faded into small, trembling breaths, and her daughter stood stiff beside her, unsure where to place her anger, her fear, or her guilt. And Judge Judy, with the calm certainty of someone who already knew the ending, straightened the file before her. "This," she said, tapping the cover gently, "is not a case about miscommunication. It is not a case about a child who misbehaves." Her eyes lifted and found Corinne's. "This is a case about patterns." Corinne blinked, still unsteady. "Patterns." Judy nodded. "Patterns of blame, patterns of dishonesty, patterns of teaching disrespect instead of correcting it." The daughter flinched as if each word struck her directly, connecting dots she had never noticed before. Judge Judy continued, her voice neither cruel nor soft, just true. "When a child behaves this way, there is always a root. A teacher does not create it. A babysitter does not create it. Even stress does not create it." She paused, letting silence settle like dust on exposed truth. "It is taught." Corinne's breath shook again, but she did not interrupt, not this time. She knew the storm had finally found the right target. Judy lifted another document from the file. "For months," she said, "you told the plaintiff that your daughter's behavior was caused by bad influences. You blamed teachers. You blamed strict rules." The page flipped. "You even blamed your daughter's friends." The daughter's face twisted, hurt, disappointment, betrayal blending together in a way she could not mask. "But," Judy said, "you never blamed the one person responsible for shaping her behavior." Corinne whispered, "Me." The word left her lips like a confession, escaping before she could stop it. Judge Judy nodded. "It takes courage to admit that, but it takes responsibility to fix it." The plaintiff watched quietly, her hands resting on the stack of papers she had carried like emotional evidence. The daughter stared at her mother, searching her face as though seeing her for the very first time. The arrogance was gone. The defiance was gone. Only confusion and something softer remained. Judge Judy leaned back slightly. "Before I decide damages," she said, "I need to understand how deep this dysfunction goes." Corinne looked up startled. "There is nothing else. I told you everything, I swear." Judy's eyes narrowed, not in anger but in certainty. "That," she replied, "is what I doubt." She closed the file slowly, deliberately, the soft sound echoing like a countdown. Then she turned to the bailiff. "Bring in the witness." A ripple of tension surged through the courtroom. Corinne's eyes widened. "Witness? What witness? There is no one else." The daughter stepped back, eyes flicking to the side door as its hinges creaked. From the hallway a shadow appeared, slow, steady, unmistakably familiar. The entire courtroom leaned forward. The door opened fully, and the witness stepped inside. When Corinne saw who it was, the color drained from her face entirely. She whispered one word, barely audible but enough to electrify the room. "Not her." The door's slow swing felt louder than any voice in the courtroom. Corinne's whisper, "Not her," was still trembling in the air as the figure stepped fully into the light. And the room reacted before anyone spoke. It was Corinne's sister. Not angry. Not triumphant. Just done. She walked with a steady calm that contrasted sharply with Corinne's trembling. Panic, even the daughter froze, her bravado dissolving as recognition sank in. Judge Judy gestured her forward. "State your name for the record." The sister did, her voice steady, grounded, like someone who had carried a truth for far too long and finally found a place willing to hear it. Judy nodded once. "You requested to speak. Why?" The sister glanced briefly at Corinne before answering. "Because I cannot watch her lie anymore," she said softly. Not to you, and not to her daughter. Corinne inhaled sharply. I did not lie to you, But her sister raised a hand gently. No, you lied to yourself, and you dragged everyone else into it. A quiet ripple moved through the audience, not curiosity, but recognition. This was a different Corinne than they'd seen so far, reflected through someone who knew her history intimately. Judge Judy folded her hands. Tell me what you witnessed. The sister nodded, gathering breath as if bracing for an emotional weight. I have seen the way they talk to each other at home, she began. The disrespect does not start with the daughter, it starts with Corinne. Corinne's face crumpled. That is not true. The sister shook her head, not cruel, not mocking, just sad. You make fun of people all the time, Corinne. You laugh at neighbors, at coworkers, even at your own child. The daughter jerked slightly, as if hit by a memory she did not want to recognize. You call her names. Her voice softened. You call her lazy. You call her dramatic. You call her stupid when you're angry, and she laughs because she thinks that's love. The silence that followed was suffocating. The daughter's eyes widened, wounded, not by the revelation but by the understanding that followed it. She whispered, You said those things because you were joking. Corinne shook her head violently, tears streaming. It was stress, I did not mean. But she heard them, the sister said, and children do not understand stress, they understand repetition. Judge Judy watched the emotional collapse unfold with practiced attention, letting the truth reveal itself in its own painful rhythm. And the day at school, Judy prompted. The sister nodded again, her voice dropped. She told me everything. She told me Corinne encouraged her to ignore rules, to stand up to teachers, to never let anyone make her feel small. But Corinne forgot that teaching a child how to feel big by tearing others down only creates more pain. The daughter's breath hitched. She looked at her mother differently now, like the ground beneath her had shifted, leaving nothing stable to stand on. Corinne sobbed openly, reaching out. I never meant to hurt you. But the girl didn't reach back. Not yet. Judge Judy leaned forward, eyes narrowing slightly. Your testimony suggests something deeper happened on that day, she said. What else are you here to reveal? The sister's last words hung in the air like a curtain waiting to fall. Judge Judy had not raised her voice, but the tension in the room shifted, focusing inward, narrowing around one pivotal question. What else happened that day? The sister inhaled slowly, as though pulling the truth from a place she had avoided for too long. She glanced at Corinne first, softly, regretfully. You told everyone the school exaggerated, she said, but you never told them what you said to her before she walked out the door that morning. Corinne froze. Even her breath seemed to stop. The daughter's eyes snapped to her mother, waiting. The sister continued, voice steady but heavy. You called her the same name she used against you in this courtroom. A shockwave rippled across the room. People stiffened in their seats, as though they felt the slap without it ever landing. The daughter blinked once, twice. Mom, what name? Corinne's mouth opened, but no sound followed. She called her a monkey, the sister finished quietly. Said she was acting wild, said she embarrassed you, said you were tired of dealing with her. The memory hit the daughter with the force of recognition. Not sudden, but creeping, building, crawling out of some quiet corner of her mind she had never questioned. Her voice came out small, almost childlike. You said that because I spilled juice. Corinne burst into tears. I did not mean it, I was stressed, But you said it, the girl whispered, stepping back as if distance could soften the blow. You said it. Her breathing grew uneven. Her hands shook. She was no longer the defiant teen performing for an audience. She was a child remembering the moment she learned cruelty had an acceptable shape, her mother's. The plaintiff lowered her gaze, empathy pulling her features downward. Even the bailiff shifted slightly, as though absorbing the weight of the moment. Judge Judy's voice cut through the spiraling silence, not loud, not harsh, but unmistakably sharp. Children repeat what they are taught, and when a mother calls her daughter a name like that, the child learns that humiliation is a lang. You had spoken at home. The daughter wiped at her eyes angrily, as though tears betrayed her strength. I thought it was funny, she said. I thought if you called me that, it meant it was okay to call you things too. I thought it was a joke. The heartbreak in the room deepened, quiet, suffocating, deeply human. Corinne reached out, sobbing. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did, the girl said, pulling away again, this time fully. You really did. The sister closed her eyes, whispering, this is why I came, because she was becoming you. Corinne crumbled into her hands, her body folding inward like a structure losing its frame. Judge Judy leaned forward, voice gentler than before but no less firm. This is the moment everything changed, she said. The day she carried your words into the world and turned them back on you. The tension tightened once more. All eyes were on Corinne's daughter, waiting for what she would say now that truth had found her. Her voice shook as she looked at her mother. Do you even know what that did to me? Her question, do you even know what that did to me, hung in the air like a crack in the foundation. Corinne didn't answer, she couldn't. And the courtroom watched as the daughter's composure fractured in real time. The girl's breath shuddered, her chin trembling despite her attempt to raise it defiantly. I thought you hated me, she said, her voice breaking mid-sentence. When you called me that, I thought I was the problem, so I acted like it. Corinne staggered back a step, tears streaming down her face. Sweetheart, no, I never hated you. I was overwhelmed, I was tired, I snapped. But I believed it, the girl cried, her voice louder now, not in anger but heartbreak. I believed every word you said about me. So when everyone else got mad at me, I thought they were just proving you right. The courtroom stayed painfully quiet, so still that even the sound of air conditioning seemed intrusive. Judge Judy watched closely, not intervening, not softening, just witnessing the inevitable truth unraveling between them. Corinne pressed a hand to her chest as though she needed something to hold her together. I didn't know I was hurting you like that, she whispered. I didn't know. The daughter gave a short, broken laugh. You didn't want to know. Her mother flinched. You said those words because you were angry, the girl continued, voice wobbling. But you kept saying them. You kept making jokes about me, about how I acted, about how embarrassing I was. She shook her head, tears finally falling freely. So I started to think embarrassment was all I was. The plaintiff looked away, eyes wet. Even the audience, who had started this case amused by the mockery, now sat heavy with the understanding that disrespect never grows alone. It spreads, it roots, it becomes identity. Corinne reached toward her daughter again, but the girl stepped back sharply, as if the distance was the only thing keeping her from breaking apart completely. Judge Judy finally leaned forward. Children internalize what they hear repeatedly, she said. Your daughter didn't just repeat your language, she absorbed it, lived it, reflected it back at you because she thought that was the only script she'd been given. Corinne covered her face, sobbing. The sound echoed, raw, unfiltered, undone. The daughter wiped her cheeks angrily. I wasn't trying to disrespect you today, she whispered. I've been disrespecting myself for years, because of you. Corinne's hands fell to her sides. Her shoulders collapsed inward. She looked smaller than she ever had. No arrogance, no excuses, no walls. Just guilt. And the realization that she had shaped the very pain now staring back at her. Judge Judy's voice cut through the suffocating quiet. Ms. Corinne, she said, everything you're hearing is the cost of the choices you made, but the deepest consequence. She paused, eyes narrowing with the precision of a final truth. Is not the disrespect in this courtroom. Corinne looked up, broken and terrified. "It's the moment," Judy said slowly. "Your daughter stopped believing you were someone worth respecting. And that is where the collapse begins." Corinne sat motionless, her daughter's words hovering like dust in a beam of courtroom light, visible, inescapable, settling slowly over every part of her. No more shouting. No more defiance. Just the hollow sound of a mother realizing the damage she never meant to cause. Judge Judy let the silence breathe, giving the emotional wreckage room to settle. Then she spoke softly, not sharply. "Ms. Corinne, look at your daughter." Corinne lifted her eyes with effort, as if they had grown heavier than her guilt. The girl stood rigid at her side, arms wrapped around herself, gaze fixed on the floor. She was no longer mocking, no longer smirking. She looked like a child who had finally understood the shape of her own pain. "What do you need from your mother?" Judge Judy asked the girl Ntly. The daughter stayed quiet at first, chewing the inside of her lip, fighting the instinct to brush the question away with sarcasm. But sarcasm would not protect her now. It would not mend anything. She lifted her chin, voice small. "I needed her to tell me the truth." Corinne's face crumpled instantly. "I'm telling you now." The girl shook her head. "Too late," she whispered. "You already taught me how to lie to myself." Another silence fell, this one softer, sadder. The plaintiff, watching this unfold, shifted in her seat. She did not gloat or look relieved. She looked heartbroken for both of them. She had seen this dynamic up close. She had lived inside its fallout. Judge Judy leaned forward, elbows resting lightly on the bench. "Children don't need perfect parents," she said. "They need truthful ones. Truth gives them foundation. Lies give them collapse." Corinne wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand, her voice raspy. "I thought I was helping her. I thought if I made her feel strong, she wouldn't." "Strength," Judy interrupted gently, "is not built by tearing others down. It's built by showing your child how to stand without hurting themselves, or anyone else." Corinne let out a shaky breath. "I didn't know how." The daughter looked at her mother then, really looked. Not with anger, not with superiority, with something far more painful, understanding. "You could have just said that," she murmured. Corinne reached out, slowly this time, her hand trembling as it hovered between them. She didn't touch her daughter, she waited, a quiet invitation instead of an expectation. This was new. This was different. This was something like humility. The girl didn't take her hand. But she didn't pull away from its presence either. A beginning, not forgiveness, not healing, just the smallest shift toward possibility. Judge Judy nodded approvingly, reading the moment like a seasoned conductor guiding a fragile symphony. "This is what accountability looks like," she said. "Not punishment, presence." Corinne exhaled, shaking, absorbing every word. Judy turned her gaze to the daughter again. "Now," she said softly, "tell your mother what you needed most and never received." The courtroom felt impossibly still, as if every breath had paused in anticipation of the girl's answer. Judge Judy's question, "Tell your mother what you needed most and never received," hung in the air like an invitation to step into a truth the daughter had never dared say out loud. She swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the sleeves of her hoodie. The daughter lifted her eyes to her mother, slowly, hesitantly, as if afraid the truth might hurt more than the lie that preceded it. "What I needed," she whispered, voice trembling, "was for you to care." Corinne's face shattered, emotion breaking through her like a vase striking concrete. "I do care," she pleaded. "You know I do." The girl shook her head gently. "No, you cared about how things looked, how people saw you. You cared about being right, about looking strong." Her voice cracked, a small fissure of pain slipping through. "But you didn't care about me." A gasp fluttered somewhere in the gallery. Even the bailiff, stoic as he was, seemed to shift his weight as the emotional temperature in the room plummeted. The girl continued, her words slow and intentional, each one carved from years of silence. You laughed at me when I messed up. You made jokes about me being dramatic or clumsy or loud. Her hands trembled now. And when school got hard, you didn't help me. You told me everyone else was jealous or unfair. You never once asked how I felt. Karen reached forward, tears pouring freely. I didn't know how to help you, she cried. I was scared. I was under pressure. I made mistakes. But you never admitted them, the daughter interrupted, her voice finally rising, not in anger but raw grief. You pretended everything was fine. And when I got in trouble or hurt someone or acted out, you made excuses. You shielded me from consequences. Her voice broke again. And I thought that meant you didn't care what happened to me, like I wasn't worth teaching, like I wasn't worth your time. Karen covered her mouth, sobbing. You were worth everything, she whispered. I just didn't know how to show it. Judge Judy stepped into the moment with a soft but firm tone. Love without guidance isn't love, she said. It's fear dressed up as affection. The daughter nodded, tears falling now without resistance. I didn't need you to protect me from the world, she said. I needed you to teach me how to be in it. The words hung in the air, heavy, honest, irreversible. Karen lowered her hands, her voice shaking. I'm sorry, she choked out. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you felt that way. The girl wiped her face quickly, not wanting the vulnerability to linger too long in front of strangers. I just wanted you to act like you cared, she whispered. Not about being perfect, just about me. A deep ache settled over the room, shared, human, painful. Judge Judy let the silence stretch, letting every word sink into its rightful place. She turned her gaze back to Karen, voice shifting subtly, preparing for consequence. And now, she said, we turn to accountability, yours. Karen's apology still trembled in the air, fragile as glass and just as easy to shatter. Her daughter's confession, raw, trembling, devastating, hung between them like a reminder that love without guidance leaves nothing but wounds. Judge Judy exhaled softly, shifting the energy of the room from heartbreak to consequence. Ms. Karen, Judy said, voice calm but cutting, your daughter has spoken her truth. Now you will hear mine. Karen wiped her face, nodding shakily. She looked exhausted, emotionally emptied, stripped of defenses, almost unrecognizable from the woman who had entered the courtroom earlier with sharp excuses and dismissive laughter. Judy leaned forward. You didn't just fail to correct your daughter's behavior, she said. You rewarded it. You comforted her with lies because you were afraid of being uncomfortable with the truth. The words sliced the space cleanly. Karen's daughter closed her eyes, her shoulders curling inward. Not defending, not mocking, just listening. You used sarcasm as affection, Judy continued. You used mockery as communication. And when she mirrored you, when she learned to speak that same language, you blamed everyone but yourself. Karen shook her head weakly. I didn't want to hurt her. But you did, Judy said. Not intentionally, but repeatedly, consistently, quietly. That's what makes emotional damage so dangerous. It doesn't shout, it echoes. The plaintiff's expression softened even further, empathy pooling behind her eyes. She seemed to understand the gravity of the moment. Accountability wasn't punishment. It was the only way forward. Judy didn't let her tone waver. A child cannot grow into respect when the person raising her hides behind defensiveness. Karen's tears returned. I didn't know another way, she whispered. I thought if I was strict and loud, she'd behave. If I ignored things, she'd grow out of it. She swallowed hard. I thought protecting her meant protecting myself. The daughter looked up, eyes red but steadier. I didn't want you to be perfect, she murmured. I just wanted you to show up. Karen reached out again, slower than ever, hand trembling in an open gesture that pleaded rather than demanded. I'm here now, she whispered. The girl didn't move toward her, but she didn't move away either. a fragile pause, suspended between pain and possibility. Judge Judy softened her tone, not kind but human. "Accountability is not about guilt," she said. "It's about becoming the person your child needed while you still have time to try." Karen nodded through tears, absorbing each word like a lesson she should have learned years ago. Judy straightened, preparing the courtroom for the transition from emotion to judgment. "This case is no longer about who was right or wrong. It is about responsibility, and now I will deliver mine." She reached for the gavel, slow, deliberate, her voice deepening with finality. "Because justice," she said, "demands truth and consequence. Before you hear the verdict, ask yourself, can someone truly change when the truth finally breaks them open? Or do they only learn to hide their flaws better?" The gavel hovered above the bench like a heartbeat suspended in time. Karen and her daughter stood side by side, both shaken, both changed, both waiting for the sound that would define what came next. Judge Judy lowered her hand slowly, deliberately, and brought the courtroom back into motion. "The court has considered all testimony," Judy began, her voice steady with the gravity of consequence. "This case involves financial responsibility, yes, but more urgently, it involves emotional responsibility." She turned to the plaintiff. "You provided months of childcare under false pretenses. You were misled, overworked, and blamed for issues that were not yours to carry. You sought fairness, not revenge, and you will receive it." Karen swallowed hard as Judy continued. "Judgment is entered in full for the plaintiff." A rustle moved across the courtroom, a release of breath, agreement, closure. Karen nodded slowly, tears welling but no longer frantic. She accepted it. For the first time, she accepted something fully. But Judge Judy wasn't finished. "Now," she said, her tone shifting from judicial to something deeper, "let's address what truly matters." The room stilled again. Judy turned her gaze to Karen's daughter. "You have been given a script your whole life, one of mockery, avoidance, and emotional confusion. You learned to perform pain instead of feel it, but you are old enough now to choose a different script." The girl nodded, wiping her cheek. Then Judy faced Karen. "And you," she said, "have carried your fear like armor, but armor does not raise children, it only keeps them at a distance." Karen lowered her eyes, letting the truth settle into the quiet spaces she had avoided for years. "What happens after this courtroom," Judy continued, "is not dictated by this verdict. It is dictated by whether you two decide to rebuild honestly." Karen breathed out, a fragile trembling exhale. "I want to try," she whispered. "I don't know how, but I want to." Her daughter glanced at her, no smile, no embrace, but a small nod. "Permission. Possibility. The kind that hurts before it heals." The plaintiff watched them gently. Even she seemed to understand that justice was not ending something today, it was beginning something else. Judy lifted her gavel one final time. "This case is a reminder," she said, "that truth is not a weapon, it is a foundation. And when a family forgets that, judgment will teach it back." The gavel struck. A clean, resonant sound that settled everything. Karen reached for her daughter, not gripping, not demanding, just offering. This time the girl didn't pull away. She didn't take the hand either. But she stood closer. And in broken families, closeness is its own small miracle. As the courtroom emptied, Judge Judy watched them with a quiet, reflective stillness.